Forgiveness is a tall order. No surprise there, because Jesus usually gives us tall orders that are difficult and require intentionality, yet are life-giving if we're willing to do the interior work and outward actions they demand. In today's gospel story, Jesus speaks of forgiveness from the heart. Let's now open our hearts as we explore what forgiveness is, what it is not, and what gifts it offers those who take this forgiveness journey. There are many pieces to forgiveness, and it often takes a long time to forgive. True forgiveness is a choice and acknowledges that one has been hurt or wronged by a person, group, or institution. To forgive, it is essential that we name this wrongful action and work through the pain in every dimension of our being. If we are the one seeking forgiveness, we must fully own the magnitude of what we did and the pain we caused. It's important to remember that forgiveness does not condone the wrong that has occurred. It does not require reconciliation or the other person to say they're sorry. And it does not remove the need for accountability. Rather, when we fully forgive from the heart, the person, group, or institution that has wronged us no longer has power over us. True forgiveness frees our hearts to move beyond the rage or anger to a place of peace. Freedom and peace are the gifts of the arduous forgiveness journey. To illustrate this, I want to share a story of tragedy and forgiveness, where second chances and healing prevailed. In a recent issue of the Philadelphia Inquirer was an article about a tragic car accident involving 31-year-old Philadelphia Phillies baseball pitcher, Andrew Bellotti. In January 2010, at the age of 18, Bellotti was driving his Ford Mustang too fast on a wet road and crashed head-on into a Dodge Caravan, killing David Reed and critically injuring his 17-year-old son, Garrett. Garrett eventually recovered from his injuries, but the Reed family was forever changed. In October 2010, Andrew Bellotti pleaded guilty to vehicular manslaughter. As he waited in his jail cell for sentencing, he reflected on the events of that fateful day and how much he wanted to reach out to the Reeds and tell them how sorry he was. He decided to write a letter to Mrs. Lynn Reed and her two children, expressing his deep remorse and admitting his terrible mistake. He shared how very sorry he was for the pain he had caused. Lynn Reed, before even receiving the letter, had already decided to ask for leniency in his sentencing. The prosecutors and judge abide by her wishes, and Bellotti served less than a year in prison and 5 years probation. When Lynn Reed's friends questioned why she could not ask for a stronger sentence and greater justice, She said she could not have David back, and there had been enough carnage from that event. When asked whether she had always been a forgiving person, Lynn said this: "I'm not religious, but I was raised with religion. And I believe that a lot of the prophets give us the best advice. Forgiveness is usually number one on those lists." She went on to say her husband Dave would have forgiven him before she did, that he had a generous spirit and would have given Bellotti a second chance. Forgiveness was more difficult for Lynn's son, Garrett. He grappled with the loss of his father and what forgiveness really meant. He lived with rage for several months and dreamed about exacting revenge for what Bellotti did to his dad. He finally came to forgiveness when he realized those feelings were costing him himself, and that forgiveness was not absolution for Bellotti. In Garrett's words, "You can forgive someone and still hold them accountable for their actions. You can forgive someone and still be angry with them. Forgiving Andrew let me sleep at night and let me acknowledge his humanity and the mistakes he made." Years later, Garrett can now talk about both his grief and his father with clarity and perspective. Last December, when Lynn Reed read an article about Andrew Bellotti, she decided to reach out to him to arrange for a personal meeting. In January 2023, they met face-to-face for the first time. They exchanged hugs, and then Bellotti, with tears in his eyes, said what he had wanted to say for 13 years. Number one, I want to say I'm sorry. I know I wrote you a letter, but I want to tell you face-to-face. Somehow you didn't want me to rot in the ground for the rest of my life. You honestly had a hand in where my life is, and I want to say thank you. With great emotion, Lynn Reed responded to Bellotti: "I'm so proud of you, because it's really hard to come back from that and create a life. You did it. Accidents happen, and the one who would have been most forgiving is Dave." Lynn went on to tell Bellotti she didn't think they could have met in person 10 years ago because there are parts of it she can just deal with now. To which Bellotti responded, "It's God's timing in all this." At the end of their 30-minute conversation, Lynn Reed said, "Now I really think we'll all be able to move on a little lighter." Throughout this heart-wrenching story, we have witnessed the healing power of forgiveness as they honestly shared their deep remorse and powerful emotions. I think this story reflects how arduous the forgiveness process is, how important it is to let it unfold over time, and how we must be intentional in what we do and say. Lynn and Garrett Reed and Andrew Bellotti created a spaciousness of heart that allowed forgiveness to blossom and gift them all with lighter, freer, and more peaceful hearts. They are living Rabbi Jonathan Sacks' message today: to learn from the past and not create more pain, but rather be generous of spirit. They have truly answered Jesus's call to forgive from the heart. Every one of us has our own forgiveness stories, and we're all in a different place on the road to forgiveness. In the coming weeks, reflect on how God may be asking us to forgive a person or ourselves, or perhaps revisit a time when we have forgiven someone and bask in the gift of that experience. May your forgiveness journey bring you freedom and peace.